Okay, the Battle of Britain has now come upon us. And these are German Heinkel bombers. There was also the famous Messerschmitts, the Junkers, the Stukas, and many others bombers that the Germans used in their great Luftwafte, or Air Force, which was led by Hermann Göring, who is pictured right here. Hermann Göring later became a great Nazi general, but at the Battle of Britain his career began to fall apart, as did the entire German Luftwaffe. The tide turned at the Battle of Britain because once Scandinavia and Western Europe had been destroyed, and at least captured by the German Nazis, they were ready to destroy Britain. This man, however, some could say, helped save the world. This is Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, at the time of the Battle of Britain. The Battle of Britain was not actually a full-out battle. It was actually a series of battles, and they were not fought on the ground or in the sea. They were fought in the air. In fact, it was one of the first major air battles of the entire history of the world. There had been small dogfights in World War I between planes. There were small air battles during the Spanish Civil War and bombing raids. But this was a major clash of air forces. The Luftwaffe, German Air Force, and the RAF, or Royal Air Force, of Great Britain. And so the RAF and the Luftwaffe clashed in what became one of the most decisive battles in the history of the world. The Germans actually had it going pretty well. During 1940, they began bombing England, and the RAF fought from the skies, and there were great dogfights all over the place, over the skies of great cities and across the countryside of England. But the Germans made one mistake that would prove fatal. That was the mistake of bombing people instead of bombing things. What I mean is, they bombed residential areas where people lived to try and show that there was no hope for the English people. But the English people were stronger than the Germans imagined. And as Winston Churchill said, they never gave up. They never gave up. And while the Germans were bombing the people of London and all the other cities of England, the British RAF began rebuilding their factories. Had the Germans continued to bomb the factories, who knows, but it might have stopped the British industrial power and could have made way for the Germans to invade Britain. With that, they could then concentrate all their forces on conquering the Soviet Union, and then the United States of America would be left a lonely island in a sea of fascism. However, the simple decision to bomb people instead of things, and to try and drive the English to their knees by bombing them and their perseverance, rather than bombing their factories and their industry, the British held on and rebuilt their factories and went to war once again with the Luftwaffe. The RAF chased the Luftwaffe out of the skies of Britain, and soon, by the end of 1940, the Battle of Britain was over and had been a decisive British victory. The British victory in the skies over England did much more than just keep Britain in the war. As I said before, it kept the world free. For if Germany had won, there would have been no hope for the Soviet Union, who would have fallen after Stalin's purges to a superior might of the German army, and then America would have been lost and would have been seriously defenseless in a wave of attacks from the Axis powers. So the fact that Britain stayed in World War II through the Battle of Britain can never be forgotten. Can never be forgotten. We may live in a seriously different world, a gravely different world, had the English people never given up. And so, I think all of humanity owes the English people a thank you for never giving in during the Battle of Britain, because it was a decisive British victory that led to eventually the downfall of Hitler. Because when the Allies invaded France on D-Day, and we'll talk about it in future videos, where did they come from? They didn't come from the Soviet Union. They didn't come from America. They crossed the English Channel from England. Had England succumbed to the attacks of the Luftwafte and had given up, there would have been no D-Day. And Hitler may have won the day. So, that in and of itself is one of the most decisive battles in history. I would rank it probably number 2, right under Marathon, an ancient Greek victory. But the Battle of Britain will be forever remembered as a decisive victory for Great Britain over the Luftwafte. So RAF and Luftwafte, clash of empires, collision of air forces in the superior and decisive Battle of Britain.